Hi, welcome to Distraction. I'm Sarah Gurton, a producer on the show. Dr. Hallowell is off this week, so for this episode, we've put together some of Ned's best tips and advice from the podcast so far.
Here's the number one thing you can do every day to help you stay focused and accomplish your goals. It sounds simple, but it's profoundly effective. Protect and use your morning burst. Now, what do I mean by your morning burst? Your morning burst is that part of the day when you are at your absolute freshest and best. For most of us, it's in the morning. And be careful of squandering that. A lot of people show up for work, and the first thing they do is check their email. Well, that's a waste of your morning burst because your email is going to flood you and you're going to get frustrated. Next thing you know, you'll be in a bad mood. And instead, create some boundaries when you show up for work or show up in your home office, wherever you might happen to be, and do important tasks during that freshest time when you're not preoccupied with anything else. Pick one or two tasks that are challenging, that you can apply your absolute best, freshest mental focus onto. Tackle a difficult problem, have a difficult conversation, whatever it might happen to be where you can use your brain at its absolute best. One of the most difficult distractions to deal with in life is difficult people. If you can, you want to simply avoid them. So that's a no-brainer. How do you deal with difficult people? You don't. You stay away from them. But sometimes you're placed in a situation where you have to deal with them. If your boss is difficult, if you have a relative who you spend time with at holidays who's difficult, we often find ourselves in situations where we have to deal with these people, and avoidance alone won't do the trick. The best thing to do is to look at the role you're playing in it. How could I behave differently? Instead of wishing the other person would change. You're wishing that other person would change and entertaining fantasies of revenge may be fun, but it's not going to be productive. Wishing the other person would change ain't going to happen. However, you can change. So you can change your behavior around that person and try to notice what do you do that makes this person difficult. If it's simply that you exist, well, then you do want to keep your distance from that person. But oftentimes there are little buttons you push without meaning to. If you have any kind of trust with the person, you could say, it would be a lot better if we could get along better. Can you tell me what I could do differently that would make us get along better? Instead of saying to the person, I wish you wouldn't do X, Y, or Z, if you could say to that person, how would you like me to change? What could I do that would make me less difficult? So you flip it and you say, I'm playing a role in this. And then you ask that person, what could I do differently? That stands a much better chance of succeeding. The guy or the woman will be amazed that you asked. And in and of itself will improve your relationship because they can see that you're working on it, and then you can make some progress. We all worry, and we should. Life gives us a lot to worry about. But I differentiate between productive worry, what I call good worry, and toxic worry that is really bad for you. Productive worry is problem solving. Your bank account is running low, so you sit down and plan how you're going to fill it up again. Or you have a mole on your forearm and you say, gee, is that a melanoma? And you go to the dermatologist and get it checked out. That's constructive worry. Toxic worry, on the other hand, paralyzes you. It freezes you up. You see that mole on your forearm and you go into a state of denial or shock, and you just say, oh, my God, I'm going to die of cancer. And you don't take any constructive action. Toxic worry is rampant in the world today because people are so disconnected. They're connected electronically, but they're disconnected interpersonally. So they don't have the prime antidote to toxic worry, which is another person. My first rule of worry control is never worry alone. Well, if you don't have anyone nearby to worry with, worry tends to become toxic. It tends to fester. It tends to globalize and awfulize. So the antidote is to connect with another person. Never worry alone. And then step number 2 is get the facts. Toxic worry is usually rooted in wrong information or lack of information or both. And then step 3 is make a plan. If you have a plan, you're going to be less worried because you'll feel more in control. The basic equation of worry is the combination of heightened feelings of vulnerability coupled with diminished feelings of power and control. And that leads to toxic worry. So having a plan makes you feel more in control and less vulnerable, hence the worry subsides. Mind you, it's an internal issue, worry. It's not the external reality is irrelevant. It's how you feel about the external reality, not the state of the external reality. And that simple 3-step plan will save you many prescriptions of Prozac. Never worry alone, get the facts, make a plan. And the first step being the most powerful. Prove it to yourself. If you're in a big warehouse in the dark by yourself, you feel frightened, paranoid. If you're in a big dark warehouse with someone, you laugh. Just having another person there immediately detoxifies worry. It all comes back to the power of connection, the theme that I stress in all of these podcasts. The power of connection, the beautiful tool that's right there for the taking, that's infinite in supply, is free of charge. People just don't realize how important and powerful it is.
My normal day is something along the lines of get the kids ready for school, they're running late, get me ready for work, I'm running late, get to work, and just always feel like I'm trying to do the right thing for work and the right thing for kids, and I got to call the pediatrician in the middle of the day, and then when I get home, I have to make sure to take them to the kids' needs, but got to check that email too, and sort of always feeling like I can't do 100% of either. And it's just disturbing and sort of distressing, and I can't quite get that balance.
Yeah. So you're always feeling that you have more to do than time to do it.
Yeah.
And you're feeling a lot of stress because of it.
Yeah, it is.
2 very specific suggestions. Number 1, delegate as much as you possibly can. Get the kids to help out as much as they can. Get your spouse, if you have one, to help out as much as he can. If you can get a cleaning person, if you can get someone to pick up the dry cleaning, whatever the various chores are, if you can delegate, hire out. A cleaning person is really worth it if you can possibly afford someone to come in once a week. These ways of delegating can make a huge, huge, huge difference. A lot of people think, no, I've got to do it myself. That's a terrible goal. Independence these days is impossible, and it's not a good goal. What you want to be is effectively interdependent. In other words, you give help, you get help, and that's the solution, is to be effectively interdependent. The other suggestion is not quite as concrete, but equally powerful. Try to get over your intense sense of I've got to be perfect. What you want to do is be good enough. Being perfect is a punishing goal. All it does is make you feel dissatisfied with who you are. I tell people, just get your life well enough organized. You don't have to be Martha Stewart. You just want to be well enough organized that disorganization doesn't get in your way. So set good enough to be your goal rather than to be perfect. Perfect is a standard no one can achieve, and all it does is make you feel inadequate day in, day out, which in turn reduces your performance because you've got a little poison going on in your system of feeling bad about how you're doing. So those 2 suggestions, delegate, hire out whatever you can, and number 2, try to reset that perfection bar. So you set it at good enough, and that's not being an advocate of mediocrity. Quite the opposite. It's the way to peak performance is to accept that you can't be perfect. You'll just do your best. I want to talk about the idea hoppers. What do I mean by that? People who are all over the place and perhaps need a little more focus. Is your brain constantly coming up with the next best thing? I have some great tips that will help you harness all that creativity and turn it into productive action rather than idea hopping. First of all, review the basic plan. Consider what you need more of, which is usually structure, some sort of plan to keep you moving forward. Write down your ideas. Much easier to organize ideas if they're in writing. Set up a structure, a game plan, if you will, and then start implementing it step by step. And ask yourself, who can help you? Often if you get someone who's just by nature better organized, that person can help you. Maybe a friend, a colleague, a coach, an assistant. Consider hiring a coach if nobody comes to mind. Reflect on it with someone who knows you and likes you. Spouse, friend, colleague, business acquaintance. Keep at it. Don't pull back out of fear or frustration. And don't sell yourself short. Don't say, well, that's just me. I hop from idea to idea. I'll never get anything done. And at the same time, celebrate your gift. Coming up with all these ideas, believe me, is not something that just everyone can do. Your issue is how to organize those ideas, and I've given you some ideas how to do that. You set up a structure, set up a plan, work with a coach so that you can make graduated progress, toward fulfillment, implementation of the ideas. But remember, that idea generator that you've got, that's your gift. That's very special. So treasure it, celebrate it, and work with somebody else to help develop those ideas. One of the most powerful tools a person can use to deepen and promote health, connection, growth in life is to learn how to forgive. Now, most people, their natural inclination, my inclination, your inclination, when you're hurt is to seek revenge. In fact, when people say, I demand justice, what they're really saying is, I demand revenge. And you could write the whole history of the world in terms of, I hurt you, you hurt me, you hurt me, I hurt you, the ongoing cycle of hurt following by hurt following by hurt. It's primitive. It's bad for you. It's very human. It's deeply wired in the brain. The desire to forgive is cortical. It comes from higher up in your brain. It comes from the part of your brain that developed later after your primitive part got laid down. And so it's hard for that upper part of your brain to rule. The primitive passions tend to hold sway. But if you work at it, you can override them, and it's in your best interest. Now, what do I mean by forgive? I don't mean you condone what was done. I don't mean you get a get-out-of-jail-free card. I don't mean you're a doormat and say, okay, hit me again. Not at all. My definition of forgiveness is simply that you rid yourself of the anger and resentment that can poison you. Walking around with anger and resentment is poisonous, and really seeking revenge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's a kind of magical thinking that only ends up poisoning you, hurting you, causing you pain and distress, and all the cascade of negatives that come from living in such a state. Your immune function is depressed, your basic emotional set point is lowered, your joie de vivre disappears. The more anger and resentment you walk around with, the less healthy, the less happy, the less vibrant you'll be. And so if you can sort of realize that forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself, then maybe you'll be motivated to do it, to rid yourself of anger and resentment. Anger should be like a sneeze. It comes out and then it's over. But a lot of people, once they get hurt, if the hurt runs deep enough, they nurse, as the phrase goes. They nurse that grudge. They feed that grudge. Now, doing it is a process. It's not a moment. You don't say, well, I forgive you, and the anger and resentment disappears. It's more like brushing your teeth. You really have to do it every day because decay comes back overnight, and overnight you start filling up with anger and resentment again. So you commit yourself to a process, and you simply say, what do I want my pain to turn into? And your first answer is, well, the other person's pain. Well, if you reflect on it a little bit more, you say, no, I want it to turn into my growth. I want it to be personal growth. So you learn to let go of the anger and resentment, knowing that it's not going to hurt anyone but you. If you can do that, you will notice the benefits pretty quickly. You'll notice freed up space in your emotional life, more room for love. The more anger and resentment that is there, the less room there is for love. And as you make more room for love, well, love carries with it enormous benefits. There's really nothing in life that can help you feel better than the feeling of love. There's nothing in life that can sort of give you the sense of life is worthwhile and the vitality that comes with that than the feeling of love. The power of forgiveness is tremendously underappreciated. I wrote a book called Dare to Forgive if you want to read about sort of a process of how to do it. But it begins with motivation to do it and realizing that you're much better off without those poisonous emotions of chronic anger and chronic resentment than nursing them along for year after year and letting them in the process cripple you and shorten your life. Embrace the power of forgiveness. It's one of the most powerful tools you have.
Have you ever been called the martyr? We're helping you take better care of yourself so as not to take on everyone else's problem. It's possible for you to care, but not get so consumed by everyone else's issues. I'm going to explain how. First of all, recognize that this is your tendency, your gut reaction, your default position, so to speak, is to help the other person first. Then realize that the tendency may be admirable as long as you can also take care of yourself. As the airlines say, put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Taking care of yourself is not being selfish. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of others nearly as well. Talk the issue through with yourself, with someone else, so you sort of give yourself permission to take care of yourself. And again, that's not being selfish. Schedule time for yourself, be it time alone, time in the shower, time at the gym, time to meditate, whatever you do that recharges your battery. That's valuable time. That's not wasting time. Say, let me get back to you on that, rather than saying yes all the time. When someone asks you to do something, instead of immediately saying yes, just pause and say, let me think about that, or let me get back to you. It gives you permission, and everyone understands that. When you see someone in distress, before you rush in, consider if you're the best person to help, or maybe someone else is better equipped to do the job. And then ask for help in providing help. Remember, someone else can help if you can't. You're not the only caretaker in the world. And finally, coming back to where we started, be happy with who you are, a caretaker. The world needs more caretakers as long as the caretakers can take care of themselves.
That's it. If you have a question or a suggestion, call us toll-free at 844-55-CONNECT or email us at connect@distractionpodcast.com or go to our website at distractionpodcast.com. To hear more mini and full-length episodes, subscribe to Distraction on iTunes. And thanks so much for listening. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our music theme was created by Mark Berman.